I used to cycle everywhere in London, and I used to work in Southwark, which involved a 3-mile commute over London Bridge, which is really hairy. I really was fearless. I used to just bike to Marble Arch or to Kensington from East London. I just would go anywhere.
On an average day in London, there are about 740 to 750,000 journeys a day by bike, with hundreds of thousands of people walking as well. But we think there's the potential for even 10 times as much cycling and 5 times as much walking.
Initially we saw a big rise in demand for all types of family bikes, children's bikes, bikes for older riders perhaps, ladies' bikes, since the beginning of lockdown, which is 3 months ago.
It's beneficial to everyone. For a start, it's good for everybody's health. There's a big obesity crisis in this country. It will really help with that. The big problem is motorists and lorry drivers who just can't see cycles, but I think the more people there are on the roads, the more it will be impossible to ignore that fact and people will just become more aware.
We know that during the lockdown, the amount of cycling has actually increased in lots of areas of London. Some of our counters are showing 3 times more cycling than normal. And you just have to look at the street here today. Lots of people cycling around, families, a variety of different people. The demand is there.
It was just really a case of looking after the customer for us and helping them become a cyclist. There were so many people who at our door wanting to become a cyclist. As we're all experienced cyclists ourselves, we know how to enjoy cycling and we know how to be safe, so we can pass across our experience to our customer rather than just handing over a bicycle and saying, there you are, off you go.
The thing that sort of stopped me in my tracks was I was biking home one evening and a taxi, like a big people carrier taxi, opened the door on me and I didn't have a chance. It just happened so quickly and it banged into my leg. It cut me quite badly. It just gave me the fear really, and then I just became a bit more reluctant about cycling.
The COVID crisis is making us have to radically rethink the way we think about moving around our city, how transport operates.
So I haven't really used my bike for about 10 years, apart from very, very occasionally for a local bike ride in the park. But recently, over lockdown, the roads are much emptier and it suddenly became really enticing because I was so desperate to get out of my immediate vicinity, and cycling is the obvious way to do that because you're not coming into contact with anyone else, and also the roads were so free of traffic and it made it just so enjoyable and fun. And I remembered how much I love cycling and how much I want to carry on doing it.
It was really nice to see that families were exercising together initially in lockdown. The 1 hour a day seemed to be quite a nice sort of time span for somebody to go out on a bike ride. Because the roads are so quiet, it's been a sort of much safer environment, especially for younger riders.
What we need to do is make sure that those people feel safe to continue to cycle as the government begins to lift the restrictions on our movements.
I've got a dentist appointment next week in Pimlico and I'm trying to work out how to get there, and I've been sort of wondering, would I be brave enough to cycle there? And I think I might try it. Well, it's a few miles. It's completely doable.
If you take a normal tube train, they reckon that about 4 people per square metre on a busy tube station. Now, with social distancing, clearly that just isn't possible, that isn't safe. So what we're looking at is a massive reduction in the capacity of our public transport network in terms of our tubes, but also in terms of our buses. If a fraction of those journeys end up being made by car, 2 things will happen. The first, we'll get gridlock. We'll just end up jamming up the city. Our emergency services, freight won't be able to get through. Second, we're going to end up with a toxic air crisis. And the very last thing we need in a respiratory disease pandemic is a toxic air crisis.
I know that in the last 10 years, there's loads of dedicated cycle lanes which are built up, so which feel a lot safer. And also there's just so many more cyclists that you just can't really ignore them. And I've driven a few times and I've been staggered at the number of cyclists on the road. There's just a sort of power in that, I think. You're not a lone wolf anymore, you're kind of part of a pack, which is probably really annoying for motorists. I'm sure they're all really annoyed about it, but because it takes out much more space on the roads, but it probably will make me feel safer.
We're still rolling really high in terms of our trading. It's good times for bike shops, without a doubt.
Will I commute to Victoria every day? I don't know.